she is already dead when they find her. Throat opened, organs surgically removed, placed beside her body with a precision that stops the detective cold in the doorway. No fingerprints, no witnesses, no name for the person who did this. And here is the part that should keep you awake tonight. That person is never found. Not then, not now, not ever. There is a particular kind of horror reserved for cases that stay open forever. Not because the evidence runs out, but because whoever did it simply vanished. They walked through the world. They had neighbors. They may have had families. And the investigators who dedicated their careers to stopping them died without answers. Today, we are looking at 5 killers who claimed multiple lives across decades and were never brought to justice. No arrest, no trial, no closure for the families they left behind. Some of these cases have prime suspects. Some have confessions that went nowhere, and at least one of them, the killer, may still be alive right now. If you have heard one name on this list, it is this one. But what you may not know is just how controlled, deliberate, and targeted this killer was. Between August and November of 1888, at least 5 women are murdered in the Whitechapel district of East London. All of them are killed in the early morning hours. All of them in the open, in streets, in courtyards, with no witnesses. The killer works fast, surgically fast. The question investigators cannot answer, and historians still debate, is whether Jack the Ripper had medical training. The removal of specific organs, the uterus, a kidney, in one case the heart, suggests anatomical knowledge. Or, at minimum, someone who had done this before. Here is the first open loop. Who taught Jack the Ripper to cut like that? Scotland Yard interviews hundreds of suspects: a Polish immigrant, a barrister, a member of the royal family. None are charged. The letters sent to police, including the notorious "From Hell" letter, delivered with half a human kidney, are never definitively linked to the killer. And then, in November 1888, the murders stop, as suddenly as they began. No explanation, no final act, just silence. Over 130 years of investigation have produced 0 convictions. The file is still technically open. On the night of May 23, 1918, a grocer and his wife are found beaten nearly to death in their home. A panel has been cut from their back door. A bloody axe sits in the hallway. The axe belongs to the grocer, which means the killer brought nothing. He simply walked in, used what was already there, and vanished. Over the next 14 months, the Axeman strikes at least 8 more times across New Orleans. 6 people die. The pattern is consistent. Chisel out a panel from the back door, enter during the night, attack with an axe found on the premises, disappear. Then, in March 1919, a letter appears in a local newspaper. The killer writes it himself. He claims to be a demon from the hottest hell. He states he will pass over any home that plays jazz music on a specific night. And he signs it, cheerfully, as the Axeman. Here is the second open loop. Why would a killer stop to write to the press, unless he wanted to be caught? The killings continue after the letter. And then, in October 1919, they stop. No arrest. No suspect ever charged. One man, a grocer named Joseph Mumfrey, is shot dead by the widow of one of the victims. She claims he was the Axeman and is convicted of manslaughter. But whether Mumfrey was truly the killer has never been established. The case is closed by default, not by resolution. Eliot Ness is already famous when the Mad Butcher begins. He has just dismantled Al Capone's operation in Chicago. Now, he is Cleveland's Director of Public Safety, and a serial killer is operating in his city. It will be the one case he never closes. Between 1934 and 1938, at least 12 victims are found in and around Kingsbury Run, a ravine used by the city's unhoused population. Every victim is decapitated. Every victim is found without their head nearby. Several are never identified. The killer shows expert-level skill in dismemberment, leading investigators to believe he had surgical or butchery training. Ness develops a prime suspect, a man named Francis Sweeney, a doctor with access to medical facilities, a cousin of a sitting congressman, and a known alcoholic. Ness interrogates Sweeney personally in 1938, off the books in a hotel room, for days. He believes Sweeney is the killer, but Sweeney voluntarily commits himself to a mental institution before any charges can be filed, and the immunity that follows keeps him legally untouchable. For the rest of his life, Sweeney sends taunting postcards to Ness, signed with his own name. The murders stop when Sweeney enters the institution. They never resume. Elliot Ness dies in 1957, still working on the case. No one is ever charged. We have covered 3 killers who operated in eras with limited forensics, no DNA, and no surveillance. It would be tempting to call these cases products of their time. But the next 2 cases are different. One comes from the 1960s, when modern investigative techniques already existed, and the other involves a killer whose identity 3 living survivors know personally, but have never revealed publicly. Here is the third open loop. The Zodiac killer sent police 4 encrypted ciphers. 3 have been solved. 1 has not. What is in the last one? Between December 1968 and October 1969, the Zodiac murders at least 5 people in Northern California. 2 victims survive and give descriptions. He attacks couples in remote areas. He uses different weapons, a gun at some scenes, a knife at others. He seems to enjoy switching methods, as if testing what he can get away with. Then the letters begin. The Zodiac writes to newspapers with codes embedded, claiming a kill count far higher than confirmed. He references buying an afterlife of slaves with each murder. He taunts police. He promises to strike again. And then, after 1969, confirmed Zodiac murders simply stop. The FBI and San Francisco Police Department have never closed the case. A suspect, Arthur Lee Allen, a school teacher and convicted sex offender, was investigated for decades. His handwriting did not match the letters. His DNA did not match evidence from the crime scenes. He died in 1992. The case remains open. The 4th cipher, 340 characters, sent in 1969, was solved in 2020 by a team of amateur code breakers. It contained no name, no location, only a message taunting investigators. The 13-character cipher, sent separately, has never been cracked. This is the one that doesn't get talked about enough. Between January 1974 and September 1975, at least 14 gay men are murdered in San Francisco. The killer, later named the Doodler by investigators, frequents gay bars in the Castro district. He draws caricatures of men he meets. He uses the sketches to start conversations. And then, hours later, the men are found stabbed to death on nearby beaches. 3 men survive attacks and are able to identify the Doodler to investigators. The suspect is located. He is a young black man, an artist, whose identity San Francisco police know. But the 3 survivors, all prominent men with public reputations, refuse to testify. In 1974, being publicly identified as gay means social and professional destruction. They choose silence over justice. The suspect is never charged. The case goes cold. In 2023, the San Francisco Police Department reopens the Doodler case and, for the first time, publicly names a suspect, a man now in his 70s, living in the Bay Area. Cold case investigators say the evidence against him is substantial. DNA is reportedly being tested. No arrest has been made. 14 confirmed victims, 3 living witnesses, a named suspect. And still, no resolution. What all 5 of these cases share is not just the absence of justice, it is the question of proximity. These were not monsters operating in shadows too remote to see. They moved through cities. They used public spaces. They were seen by witnesses, by investigators, by survivors who could have spoken. And still, they slipped through. Elliot Ness never solved his case. 3 survivors of the Doodler are now elderly, and whatever they know may go to the grave with them. The Zodiac's final cipher sits in an FBI archive somewhere, waiting. And whoever killed those 5 women in Whitechapel in 1888 has had over a century of silence. However they lived out the rest of their life, however long that was, they were never held accountable for a single one of those deaths. There is no neat conclusion here, because for the families of these victims, there never was one either.